I'd like to talk to you about change. Change is a subject that's very relevant at the moment, and it's something that happens to us all at various times in our lives. When it happens, we go on a journey, and that journey is the same for all of us. The only difference between you and me is how we actually adapt as the journey goes on. So let me share the journey with you. It's called the transition curve. Some of you might have seen it before. If we just get it up to the screen in full size, we'll talk through it. Two axes, the vertical axis, if you're sitting to the left of that vertical axis, then you're thinking about the past. And if you're sitting to the right of it, you're thinking about the future. Equally, the horizontal axis, if you're above that, then your emotions are out in the open, you're sharing what you think and what you feel, and you're generally communicative. Whereas if you're below it, you're bottling everything up, everything is hidden, and it becomes a little bit of an issue. So the change happens, and immediately we all go into denial. Feelings of frustration, feelings of irritation, not understanding why it's happening, but we're talking to each other, sort of almost expressing condolences to each other in many ways. Very quickly, though, those feelings of frustration and irritation move into feelings of confusion and anger. And we start to actually close down. We stop talking to people. We go into a resistance phase where we're just thinking about the past. We're not interested in the future at all. And we're getting very angry that what we've seen in the past, what we've got very used to, is just not going to be the way forwards. But over time, we begin to accept that it's inevitable, there is going to be change. So we start to look to the future. We start to explore how the future might look, start to think about how it will impact on us in terms of our private lives, our commute into work, our work lives, the people that we interact with and everything else. And hopefully, as that exploration takes place, we begin to accept the change. We begin to understand these new ways of working. When we're confident we understand them, that's the point at which we actually start to open up again. So we move out from the exploration stage into the commitment stage. So we have feelings of hope and a return of energy. Now, as leaders, you're probably thinking, well, that's great to understand that, but how do I actually influence the way in which my people travel through that curve? And the answer is there's four things that you can do. So at the first stage, when the announcement is made that there is going to be a big change, provide as much information as possible. It's all got to be factual, none of it's got to be speculative, and certainly none of it's got to be dishonest. So just as much information as possible. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I was working for a business that was going to merge with three other businesses. The lady who ran the business took us to a venue, all 120 of us, and announced what was going to happen and provided a lot of information about how this was going to happen and what potentially the impact was going to be on us. As we left the presentation, we were all given 8-page booklets which contained the same information, and she also drew our attention to the fact that the intranet would have that same information and that would be updated as and when there was new information to add. So it was particularly helpful that we knew exactly where we were. When people go into the resistance stage, then obviously there's the anger bubbling away underneath, there's the confusion, and most of all, they're not communicative. So you probably talk to them and get monosyllabic answers. They'll grunt, they'll answer yes or no, but they won't actually enter into conversations with you. So at that stage, it is difficult to support them, but there is a way you can support them, and that is literally through offering support by making them understand that you're there to assist them. And what the lady who ran the business I was telling you about did was to say, right, in future, you don't need an appointment to come to see me. My door is an open door. If you want to talk about anything to do with this, just come in and see me. And that reassures, it makes people think, well, at least I can go and ask. And I asked her at the end of the process how many people took her up on that offer. And she said out of 120 staff, only 3 people took it up. But she made the point to me that that wasn't relevant, the take up. It was the fact that the door was perceived to be open all the time. And that reassured people in that resistance phase that they had that option, even though most of them didn't take it. So then people move through to the exploration stage. So the anger and the confusion is beginning to wane. The clenched fists, the monosyllabic answers are beginning to disappear. You can enter into some sort of discussion with people. And at that stage, what they need is some sort of focus. So they're not prepared to have an open discussion with you, but what they are prepared to do is listen. So if you can share your view of the future, sort of a vision of what their particular role might look like in the future. It just helps to reassure them that they're thinking along the right lines. Hopefully it does. And then finally, if you've got that bit right, then they come through to the commitment stage. And what they need at that stage is encouragement. It's just reassurance that this is the way that we're going forward, that all their perceptions about the future are correct, and that the future will be potentially an opportunity for them rather than a threat. What you need to realize, though, is that this is not a linear progression. People don't move from denial to resistance to exploration to commitment. People get stuck, and some people never get out of resistance or exploration. However hard you try, they're always hankering after the past, or they're always nervous about the future. But in an organisation of 120 people that we had at that time, there were a number who roared through that and got to commitment very, very quickly. And they're potentially your internal champions if you have people like that. So your team will expect you to make all the right noises, to say all the right things. But if there's an internal champion also saying those things, that gives added credibility to what you're saying. So encourage those people who do get to commitment quite early. Make sure that they're out there putting the case to all their colleagues to help them to come through this particular transition curve. The transition curve doesn't just apply to our business lives, it also applies to our private lives. And I think it's important, particularly if there's a bereavement or if you're getting involved in a divorce situation in the family, to understand the anger and the exploration stage and the commitment stage, so you understand where people are and you're not tempted to say the wrong things at the wrong time. So that's a transition curve. It's been a very brief sort of understanding of the transmission curve, but I think it's something that's particularly important for us going forwards. I hope that's been useful. If you'd like any more information, please feel free to come and ask about it. Thank you.